जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निरभउ निर्वैर अकाल मूरत अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद जप आद सच जुगाद सच है भी सच नानक होसी भी सच वाहिगुरु 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 वाहिगुरु। फरीदा जे जाना तिल थोड़ड़ संबल बुख परी जे जाना सो नंटड़ा ता थोड़ा मान करी जे जाना सो नंटड़ा ता थोड़ा मान करी। Sangat Ji, in West Punjab, which is now situated in Pakistan, there's an ancient tradition that takes place at weddings, and this is known as Tilvatari. When a bride comes back to her husband's home after they've married, there's a tradition where a bowl full of sesame seeds, til, are placed in front of the bride. And here, this bride takes a fistful of these sesame seeds and she holds it tight. And these seeds are then passed from hand to hand to the different relations of her husband's family, to the mother, to the sisters, to the sister-in-laws. And these seeds are passing from hand to hand, to hand to hand. And this is a tradition of wishing the newly wedded couple a long wedded life, a relationship of love, a relationship that sustains. But the bride the whole time is holding these sesame seeds. In this verse that we've just read, Bhagat Farid Ji, a great Muslim saint, they narrate a conversation happening with the soul bride. So those souls that are on this journey, on this wedding, to unite with the divine, to have this wedding with the divine. And these soul brides, they say, if only they knew that they had so few seeds in their hand. If only they knew they had so few seeds in their hand, meaning if only they knew that the breaths that they had in this life were precious. They had such few breaths to take. I would have looked after them better, they say. And then if only I knew that my husband, my divine, my beloved, was so soft-hearted, was so innocent-hearted, I wouldn't have shown so much arrogance. Bhagat Fariji is explaining that if we knew this in our worldly relationships, if we understood this, we would develop relationships that last. We would understand that our time is precious with one another. We would value each other's time that much more. We wouldn't engage in those wasted ego-based arguments. But the very same Bhagat Ji is saying in the spiritual marriage. If we knew that each breath that we took was precious, we would add value to that breath, and we would adore the divine with such loving innocence, because in that loving innocence, we find the divine. Sangat Ji, over the last few weeks, we've traveled on a beautiful journey. As we've gone through the scriptures of Guru Ramdas Ji, known as the Laavan. These beautiful verses speak about the union between the Atma and the soul which is within us all, and the Paramatma, the super soul, the super consciousness, the divine. And in this is a beautiful marriage ceremony. This is a beautiful, blissful union. This lava makes up the Sikh marriage ceremony. And whilst it provides guidance to a happy couple during this material world, this lava explains the ultimate union of this soul with the divine and our stages to liberation. From these beautiful verses, us as seekers of the divine, us as lovers of the divine, can track where we are in the spiritual journey. We can track whether we're at the first stage, second stage, third stage, and ultimately the full stage. And it's not for anybody else to judge. This is for us to evaluate our own selves. Because this is a very personal journey, a personal one. And we can evaluate where we are on this journey ourselves. The Lava Guru Ramdas Ji also gives us an indication of what we can expect, what we can experience, what we will feel on this journey. Union or liberation is referred to as mukti or moksha, just as a reminder of what we've captured in the last few weeks. And there's a common perception that liberation or mukti occurs after death. But the Gurus have explained that this liberation doesn't occur after the death of this body. It has to be achieved in the here and now. As the great saint Bhagavad Bhai Ji says, Bhai kahe snore bhagto marana mukta kin pai. Bhai says, O saints, who has ever obtained this liberation after death? This is because this liberation is related to the state of our mind and the perceptions and the influences that the mind captures. So this liberation does come after a death. But what death? The death of our ego. After dying in the Shabad. So after an ego death, after dying in the Shabad, we come to the door of liberation. When the mind realizes its experiences, when the mind realizes its true origin, its true purpose, it connects with the divine. But if the mind hasn't realized this, it will simply carry on its journey, on its path. If we explore death just very simply, when someone's died, we say they've gone. But what has actually gone? The body's laying in front of us. We can see the body. Everything that we had a relationship with is in front of us. So what exactly has disappeared? It's what's within that body, the soul that's traveled. It's the subtle image of that soul, the impressions, the perceptions that have been painted on that mind, that's traveled somewhere else, that's flown somewhere else. And it's this that we take into our future experiences. So I like to imagine it in this way, that when we fall asleep at night, we simply wake up in the same place in the morning. But when we die, again, we simply wake up with the same mental impressions and perceptions that we've stored in the past, just in a new body, in a new vehicle. And we simply carry on from that. We wake up from where we left off. We will continue with this journey until we've found that complete union with the divine. And this only comes when the mind's desires have ended. When the mind no longer is looking at the world for its source of happiness. When the mind has risen above the body's needs. When the mind has come to that emotional stability. When our life is now dedicated to the divine and the divine alone. When these things occur, we've arrived at the door of liberation, the door of mukti. So throughout these 4 stages of liberation, the lover of the divine falls deeper and deeper into their meditation. They practice seva or selfless service. They dedicate their life, their soul. They develop a spiritual attitude of compassion and humility. At this first stage of liberation, so right at the beginning, the mind engages this body into ritual worship. So we do a lot of those actions. We go to the temple, we go to the church, we go to the mandir. The mind has encouraged the body to go into that process. And as we're busy learning the protocols, the practices, and as we learn to sit within the divine Sangat, those rituals will start to become our habit, our nature. They'll start to become a divine action. And as this worship becomes very natural, as it becomes our very nature, and as the mind starts to rest in that action, as the mind starts to also worship, a sweetness then comes to our mind. And we start experiencing a sweetness within us. This is known as Ras. Once this sweetness comes, Sangat Ji, we've completed the first Laavan, and we're coming into the second stage of liberation. At the second stage of liberation, with the divine's blessings, all our fears are eradicated. We simply forget all of our fears, and we're letting go of our ego. The veil that separates us from the divine, the ego, and our inherent fears and our doubts in ourselves, doubts in the ability, doubts in our faith in the divine, all these start to fall away. And when this happens, we then have an encounter with the divine. This encounter is when we start hearing the voice of the divine, and we start experiencing and feeling the nearness of the divine. We feel the divine ever present with us. This results in what the seeker, what the gurus have said. The seeker then experiences something called Anhad Naad or Shabad. Anhad Shabad or Duni. A few different words that explain the same thing. So before, we would be busy listening to kirtan, we'll be busy listening to songs, religious texts, religious prayers, a lot of music, a lot of singing, a lot of beating drums, a lot of gong meditation, a lot of bells, and a lot of chanting. But for the first time, we're hearing these divine frequencies within us. What the ancient saints have done in the past is when they've heard these frequencies internally, they try to replicate that externally. So the old instruments that we have, they're trying to replicate the inner voice, the inner sound that can be heard. But these frequencies now start to play within us. And this is without plucking any instrument. That's without playing any song. This is an experience that happens anyway, naturally, all the time. But for the first time, we're actually hearing it. And then these frequencies then become the focus of our meditation. We're hearing the voice of the divine. But this is as if someone's calling us from a distance. Someone's calling us from far away, and we can hear them, but we can't see them just yet. Nevertheless, this is a direct interaction we're having with the divine. This is a divine visualization. Coming to the point where we can feel the nearness, coming to the point where we can hear this Shabad within us. This is a stamp. Once this happens, that's the stamp to say that we have now got to the second Laavan, the second stage of spiritual liberation. Now from here, Sangat Ji, with the divine's blessings, we will now focus on the third Laavan, or the third stage of spiritual liberation. Let's focus our attention, focus our mind, as we recite the words that Guru Ramdas Ji has blessed us with in the Laavan. Har tijadi laav man chao paya bairagya Balaram Jiyo Sant jana har mel har paya bad bhagya Balaram Jiyo Nirmal har paya har gun gaya mukh boli har bani Sant janavad bhagi paya har kathiya kath kaani Hirda har 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 thun upji har japiya mastak bhag jiyo Jan nanak bole tiji lava har upjay man bairag jiyo Hirda har 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 thun upji har japiya mastak bhag jiyo Jan nanak bole tiji lava har upjay man bairag jiyo. The third laugh. In this third round of the marriage ceremony, Guru Ramdas Ji is telling us that the mind is full of divine love. What happens, Sangat Ji, is as we come to this third stage, as we start hearing that unheard Shabad, that voice of the divine calling us from far away, the mind develops an intense yearning, an intense love, together with an extreme form of detachment, a detachment from everything in this world. After you've heard such a beautiful sound within you, that lover's mind becomes completely reclusive to the outside world. And Sangat Ji, I've seen many hidden and secret saints who have actually experienced this place. They're secret. They don't announce themselves of who they are. And you may confuse their reclusiveness as a depression, as a sadness. But this is pure love. It's just that they've now got to a point where they have no desire to be involved in anything worldly or to be subjected to any situation that will take away their focus. This is not that they've rejected any of their responsibilities. They're still living within the world. They're doing what they're doing. They're living within their families. But they simply have switched themselves off from anything that's false, anything that's fake, anything that's going to take their concentration away from this sound. And incidentally, many like others, I've seen those that talk much about yearning. They talk much about this love. They talk about this detachment. And they spend ages telling you about their truths and their experiences. But little do they know that when you go through this, you've lost the power, the ability to speak. You cannot speak about these things. You just lost it. Nor have you the power to remain silent. Because now whatever you're saying, whatever you're listening to, is whatever the divine has instructed you to do. Oh, aapko bolna janada, main kya sab hukmaao jiyo. I don't know how to speak. Main kya sab hukmaao jiyo. Whatever I say is by the order of the divine. Here, there's no energy to spend time talking about experiences, as the energy is way too intense to describe. And in this talk and talk and talk, much is lost, much is lost. Sangat Ji, you can feel a real difference when you're sitting in the presence of a precious soul, and as they part these gifts of an experience on you. And even if they only give you a sesame seed worth of awareness, compared to the talkers who simply are looking for acknowledgement of their ego, you'll see and experience these blessings coming to you in real profound silence. Guru Ramdas Ji has described this intense love as chao. And this chao is born from a complete detachment or dispassion known as bairag. Mana chao baya bairagiya. So chao, this intense yearning, is a deep passion within. This is not a worldly love based on attachments. And this is why the closest we can get to an explanation is yearning. There's no word that's equivalent. This is an outpouring of your soul. Nothing other than the divine can take your pain away. Nothing can equate to that pain of love that you're experiencing. Often we say when there's a feeling when we love so much that a second without that love is too painful to bear. If we can hold on to that imagination, that experience, then we're coming closer to what that Jal might feel like. This is a deep thirst within, a thirst for the internal vision, or darshan, as it's referred to. Darshan dek man jao. We have this thirst for this internal vision, for the internal experience, for the internal sight of the divine. And it's this pining of the divine, this gift of internal darshan or vision, that the seeker is then looking for. And in that vision and in that darshan, that lover, that seeker, comes to a place of complete surrender, complete freedom, liberation. In a strange way, Jao is a joy. But it's a joy that we don't understand as worldly individuals, because it comes from detachment, from Vairag. This is a joy that comes when you realize that the world doesn't give you any pleasure, when that awareness and awakening comes. Because once you've tasted the divine, once you've had that taste of that sound, once you've heard that mesmerizing music within, all other pleasures are tasteless. And this mind then comes to renounce all other pleasures. Before this, we couldn't get enough of our lust. We couldn't get enough of our greed. We couldn't get enough of our enjoyments. But now we're in this awakening. These passions are just fleeting. They're tasteless. And they do not compare to even a second of the divine's vision. Because in this divine vision, in this darshan, there's peace, there's tranquility, there's contentment, there's love. Whereas in these worldly tastes, there's only pain, there's only heartache, because those expressions, those feelings, those experiences are very limited. And it's this ecstasy of darshan that comes through intense vairag or dispassion. What does this vairag feel like, Sangat Ji? We can get closer to experiencing or understanding this intense yearning through the shabads of the fifth Guru, Guru Arjan Dev Ji. The Sakhi, or the background to this, is quite long. But essentially, Guru Arjan Dev Ji, the fifth Guru, cried a reservoir of tears when outpouring their emotions to their fourth Guru, Guru Ramdas Ji, their father, their divine. Guru Ramdas Ji had sent Guru Arjan, the fifth Guru, away. They'd separated themselves from them. And they gave the instruction that they mustn't return until they were instructed to come back. And in these cries of separation, Guru Arjan Dev Ji wrote heartfelt letters of love, pining for the vision of the Divine Father, their master. And in this love, we will focus now on their third letter in particular, in which Guru Ramdas Ji says, Ek kadi na milte ta kal jug hota, hun kad miliye pra tud bhagwanta, mohe rehn na behava, नींद ना आवे बिन देखे गुर दरबारे जियो हाँ कोली जियो कोल कुमाई तिस सच्चे गुर दरबारे जियो. Guru Arjan Dev Ji is crying to their master. They're saying, Master, Guruji, 1 second without you is an age of darkness and despair. It's an age of falsehood. When will I ever see you again, my beloved? When will I lay my eyes on you? Because these nights are too long without you. I cannot endure these nights. Nor am I able to fall asleep without just seeing you, having a glimpse of your vision. I must sacrifice again and again and again just to have one glimpse of you. This may give some sort of idea of what that yearning might feel like. As the Gurus have said, this whole path of liberation is simply a journey of the mind. And the stage we are at on this journey will depend on our mind's elevation and what it's influenced by. Generally, if we look at our influences, you can break them down into 3 distinct desires. This is above our worldly needs. Above our worldly needs that we need just to survive, we have 3 distinct emotions that fuel our desires. One are our ego-based desires, that need for control, that need for recognition, for power, for ownership, to protect our individuality, to get what we think we deserve. And then our desires based on greed. And these are actually fanned by the ego itself. The constant needs that we have, the obsessions that we create, all these things that we think will give us our happiness and contentment. Then we have the desires of this body, those of our sense organs. These are all fleeting desires that last for seconds, yet we have such hold on them, and they cause such destruction at times. But what happens distinctly throughout the spiritual path, and particularly at this stage, is that the spiritualists have they've acquired an ability to guard their heart. They're guarding their heart from any of these perceptions and latent desires, because they've understood these words of Guru Nanak Dev Ji when they say, Dil darwani jo kare, darvesi dil ras, ishq mohabbat nanaka lekha karte paas. The one who keeps watch over their heart, keeps their heart pure, and they are a true saint. Because in the end, only love and affection is what's going to be called to account. So Sangat Ji, these doors that we have, these doors that invite our lust, our anger, greed, attachment, and pride, they influence our sense organs. And once these doors are open, once these things are allowed to come through our home, they will destroy any beauty that we had in our soul, anything. They will ransack our house, our internal home. And they will steal any possibility of divine bliss and liberation. So the spiritualists at this stage are really watchful of their heart, because they know that any perception, especially during prayer, any slight deviation to the prayer could send them crashing down, could take their awareness away completely. The slightest deviation, even just one episode of anger, even one ill misplaced thought, could take away your complete awareness and contentment. And this is why the spiritualists have learned to guard their heart and not allow these smallest desires to influence them. So in Punjabi, we say, this is furna, and you're controlling your furna. You're not allowing any wish, any desire to come into your contemplation, because we know that those desires don't go anywhere. They will actually play out and play out and play out, but we're on a divine journey, and we're so close at this time. And at this point, we don't want anything to take away our focus. So Sangat Ji, I think it's important to actually understand here that the Gurus are not saying repress your desires. And especially if we need something, who else are we going to ask for? We're going to ask the divine for what we need. Repressing your desires will make you miserable in the beginning. We're not saying repress it. This is not a restriction. You can enjoy the finer things in life, but at this particular stage of elevation, in any way, you've simply let go of any thought, any need of the body, because you're not in your body anymore. You've got no relationship to your body. It's not something you recognize anymore. So therefore, because you're not in your body, you're not working for your body. The body, your wants, your desires are not related to this body or this world. And if we look at the lives of saints, when a saint passes away, it's often said they just change their clothes. And even when we die, even when these saints die, some saints have completely immersed their body into the sea. There's no physical trace of them remaining. And then whatever was left is simply passed into nature, because they've got no relationship with the body at all. But when we come to this stage, Sangat Ji, if we're still thinking about our bodily needs, then we haven't completed this third stage. We haven't reached it. Guru Ramdas Ji tells us further, Sant jana har mel har paya, bad bhagya Balaram Jiyo. Meeting the saints, I have found the divine with the divine's blessings. This is the stage, Sangat Ji, where we definitely need that spiritual guide, that pure soul who could take us on this journey. Firstly, with the blessings of the divine, we find that Sangat, that spiritual gathering, and they inspire us onto this journey. Holding on to them, we move away from our previous relationships, our false life, as we try to unite with the divine. As the scriptures say, Tina dek man chao thanda how kad pai gunatasa. Seeing these individuals, seeing this Sangat, that chao, that inspiration, that yearning comes within us. How can I also meet the divine? How can I also be like these saints? These blessed souls become our inspiration, our spirit guides. And after all, we're walking into this unknown. We're walking into this deep, dark forest of Maya. This is a deep, dark illusion. So therefore, we need to follow the guides of the saints. We need to follow their path, those that have done this journey already. Then Guru Ramdas Ji tells us, Nirmal har paya har gun gaya mukh boli har bani Sant jana vad bhagi paya har kathiya kat kahani. As our ego falls, Sangat Ji, we start to rise in humility. And as this happens, a secret conversation, an internal conversation starts happening within. The Shabad, the voice of the divine, the vibration, the scriptures within us, they reveal hidden meanings and understandings that cannot be understood by the spoken word, cannot be understood by our intellect either. This is something you just have to feel. In Chao, through the inspirations and blessings of the Guru, we notice that change taking place. We've been meditating and we've been vibrating on the divine. But now we realize this meditation, this vibration, this resonance, these acts of devotion are not happening unconsciously. They're happening automatically. We're not forcing our body to do this. It's happening automatically. In the first stage of liberation, the mind has to influence the thought to pray. It has to instruct this body. And if we're honest, Sangat Ji, in these first stages, sometimes it's very difficult to wake up in the early hours to meditate. It's very difficult to push yourself to do any meditation. It's difficult to be both physically and mentally present. But the concept, the curiosity, and the Sangat, the inspiration that how we have keeps us going. But when we come to this third stage, the mind doesn't need to be instructed, nor does the body. It happens automatically for this divine lover. And the tensions and the doubts that you might have at the first stage are completely lifted, because this is now an automatic resonance. This is the divine sound that's being heard with even more clarity. Each and every pore of your body is now vibrating this Naad, this Shabad. Baba Jaswant Singh Ji, they would explain this. Imagine turning a machine or your car on, and you're turning the ignition. It'll be turning and turning and turning until it gets to that current. It'll be revving and revving until that connection's made. In those first stages, we're pressing that button, but by this stage, we managed to make that connection. That machine has started. Then Guru Ramdas Ji explains, Hirday har 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 tonu paji har japiye mastak bhag jiyo. Jan Nanak bole tiji Laavan, har upajay man bairag jiyo. The saints have said that once they've had a glimpse of their true home, living in this clay body is like a prison for them. But in acceptance of the divine's command, of the divine's hukum, the natural order, they remain present here. This is a state of being where there's no pride in what we do or what we've achieved. There's no pride in any form. There's no pride in our color, status, achievements. There's no pride in our background, no pride in our beauty. There's no pride in our caste. There's no pride in anything. The ego completely disappears. The only pride that they have is in the divine themselves. Man karo tud upare mere pritam pyare. The saints who have reached this stage have completely dropped their discrimination. All they see is the one divine in everyone. And they've withdrawn themselves from these bodily pleasures. Just as a sun gives rays of light to everyone, but has no attachment of what it does. There's no thought process to this. The same as the flower gives fragrance to everyone and has no idea what it's doing. This is the same place that these all-knowing saints that now live in. They live with no attachment to their actions. They are performing their worldly actions, but they remain present in the divine. And they're showing this endless compassion, this forgiveness, this tolerance. And Sangat Ji, we start becoming very soft-hearted. Because we become the slaves of the Sangat, we become slaves of the divine, not the slaves of this world. And they remove their judgments from others. Now, Sangat Ji, is a simple wait, a constant prayer that the divine takes us in their embrace. And on their foreheads, Guru Ramdas Ji says, the mark of the divine's blessings is written on their forehead. It's almost as if a prophecy is being written on their forehead of their union. Once we've reached this stage of the third Laavan, there's no turning back. Once this intensity increases, all you want to do is go further. I would like to finish, Sangat Ji, by just remembering Baba Ji here. When thinking about this discourse and preparing this discourse, they came into our mind quite a bit. Baba Ji guided countless people through these stages of liberation, countless people. And such a saint like Baba Ji is 1 in a million. If you wanted to find a true saint who was beyond their body and beyond these senses, so everything that we're saying here, then Baba Ji were the living example of this. Day and night meant nothing to them. They were not in their body. Even in a wheelchair, 12 to 14 hours a day. And what amazed me was, even after their numerous operations where they had organs removed because of cancer, even then they were still in their wheelchair, greeting the whole Sangat, sometimes 12 hours a day, but not moving. They still served and served and served. Regardless of what stage we are at this liberation, the one thing to realize is, many of us might be thinking, well, this sounds like it's completely unattainable. But Sangat Ji, think of it like this: each and every stage is a blessing. And the saints are always blessed. They're always thinking of and living in gratitude for every single bit of peace and awareness they're given. Even at the first stage of liberation, there's immense sweetness. The time spent in Sangat is peace and comfort. It gives us tranquility to this mind. Then at the second stage, there's the nearness of the divine, the voice of the divine, the internal music, the voice of the divine gives us comfort. And then at this third stage, that intense love for the divine just grows and grows and grows. And in each stage, Sangat Ji, each stage brings its own gifts to this mind of the lover. How long this journey takes is down to the divine's blessings. Our job is to completely remember to surrender to the divine. And it is very possible that this will happen in this very life. If we practice our faith tradition, if we're truthful to our path, If we forsake those relationships we've made with this false love of this world, we'll find a place in our true home. Next week, Sangat Ji, with the Divine's blessings and your blessings, we'll dive deeper into these stages of liberation. And as we come to the place where we contemplate the fourth love and the final stage of liberation. And with these words, Sangat Ji, I beg your forgiveness. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.